Hello to the 43rd CEAFU conference. My name is David Schmus and I very recently became the Executive Director of Christian Educators Association International, or CEAI, taking over from my friend and mentor, Finn Larson. CEAI provides thousands of Christian educators around the country, mostly in our public schools, with professional liability insurance, job action protection, and other legal coverages as an alternative to teachers' unions. We also equip, encourage, and empower our members to walk out their faith legally and boldly in our schools, as we don't have to hide who we are to be public school educators. I spent 15 years as a public school educator in California, mostly teaching AP US History and Government. Very early in my teaching career, I grew frustrated with how the union was spending my dues. I learned how to become an agency fee payer, quit the CTA-NEA, and joined Christian Educators Association International. Thankfully, I did not face opposition or hostility on my campus from my union reps. But I know many agency fee payers or religious objectors have endured accusations of being freeloaders or otherwise not team players. I am grieved by these reports because it was the union, not these teachers, who decided to take radical moral and political views about topics not related to education, and then attempt to force the rest of us to pay for and in other ways support this agenda. I came into teaching after going through seminary and training for the ministry, and was concurrently teaching biblical worldview courses as an adjunct professor at Biola University. Obviously, my faith was and remains very important to me, and was a big part of how I made the decision to leave the union. I know this is not a religious movement or conference, but I also know that many of us who share concerns about forced unionism do so partly from a faith perspective. Even as some of you don't share my faith, I think you may appreciate hearing how I and many other people of faith have come to join this cause. Let me start by pointing out that all of us here are asking for freedom from forced unionism. I suggest to you that freedom itself is rooted in God. Thomas Jefferson and the signers of the Declaration recognized this when they wrote, "All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights." You see, molecules can't have rights. Material substances can't be free or enslaved. Our brain chemistry can't be true or false or good or evil. These moral categories simply don't apply to stuff. If the human race just somehow arrived here by an uncaused evolutionary cosmic accident, then that's all we really are. We're stuff. We're molecules or brain chemistry. Just like chemicals can't have the state of being true or false or good or evil. They can't have the state of being free or enslaved, at least in the sense that we mean it here. B.F. Skinner understood this in 1971 when he wrote the book Beyond Freedom and Dignity. Understanding that if human beings are only material, in other words, if they really don't have God-designed eternal souls, then concepts like freedom and dignity make no sense and should be dispensed with. But because we are made in God's image and endowed by God with the ability to think, to feel, to create, to will, and to love, just to name a few of our capacities, then we are worthy of freedom. After all, why would God give us these abilities only to have them taken away by the oppression of others? This is essentially the argument of the Declaration of Independence, that because we have these God-given abilities, we have the right to practice them. Therefore, the job of government is to protect them. So for me, this fight for freedom is a struggle to protect God's design, that each of us should have the right to decide for ourselves what political causes we will or will not support with our hard-earned dollars. That alone should be enough for a person of faith to oppose forced unionism. But the unions themselves have given us so many additional reasons for educators to oppose and ultimately to abandon them. First, many of our members have objected to the teachers' union's strong support for abortion rights. From a pure logic perspective, this makes no sense. After all, abortion means fewer children, and fewer children need fewer teachers. Why would unions support a policy that has the direct effect of reducing the members of their profession? Because, it's not about logic or what's best for teachers ultimately. It's really about promoting a progressive ideology. Support for abortion has driven thousands of Christian educators out of the teachers' unions. Bible passages like Psalm 139 and Jeremiah chapter 1 read that God knit us together in our mother's womb. And before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. God's love relationship with us starts even before we are born. So when I learned that my union was helping support the killing of millions of unborn children in this country, I knew I couldn't stand by and do nothing. About the time I came on staff with Christian educators in 2015, undercover videos were released appearing to document Planned Parenthood's illegal selling of baby body parts for profit. The video showed sickening and callous disregard for these precious lives by Planned Parenthood officials, and I was curious to learn if I could trace any money going directly from teachers' unions to Planned Parenthood. What I discovered was that in the 2014 election cycle, almost $800,000 of teachers' unions' dues ended up in the hands of Planned Parenthood. The unions disguised this flow of money by sending it to surrogates like America Votes or the Center for American Progress. But if you follow the money, you see where it ends up. If you go to our website, CEAI.org, and search for Planned Parenthood, you will see that original article. For the purposes of this talk, I decided to give that research a little update, given that we've had another election cycle since then. What I found was that at least in the case of the AFT, they have dispensed with the disguise. During the 2016 election cycle, the AFT gave $350,000 directly to Planned Parenthood, with no surrogate involved. If you include continued giving through surrogates, including in this case the super PACs America Votes and Priorities USA, you find that an additional almost $2.5 million of teachers' hard-earned union dues ended up in the hands of Planned Parenthood during the 2016 election cycle. In other words, despite the negative publicity given to Planned Parenthood in 2015, teachers' union dues going to them actually increased. A second reason teachers of faith have left the unions is because of their one-sided political contributions and advocacy. I also found during my research, consistent with the work of people I am deeply indebted to, like Larry Sand, Mike Antonucci, and others, that teachers' union political spending is almost entirely one-sided and not reflective of union membership. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to you. But one thing I found was quite interesting. The NEA Advocacy Fund, which is the NEA Super PAC, spent nearly $5 million on national political races in 2016. Of course, that's just a token of their total political spending. But what did they get for their $5 million? Well, surprisingly, of that $5 million, they only spent $385,000 supporting Democrats. The remaining over $4.5 million went not to supporting Republicans, but to opposing Republicans. So in reality, all $5 million went to Democrats. What did they get for their money? The 8 Democrats they supported in 2016 all lost. And of the 7 Republicans they spent so much money to oppose, 6 of them won. So not only was the NEA's 2016 Super PAC spending 100% one-sided, but apparently ineffective as well. Is this what educators expect in return for their hard-earned union dues? And this comes despite the fact that the NEA has admitted on multiple occasions that their membership is probably about 60% Republican or independent. A third reason the unions have given people of faith cause to abandon them is that the NEA's most recent annual convention, not only did they vote to support many new resolutions on a variety of political issues having very little, if anything, to do with education, but they also voted to ban 3 Christian groups from exhibiting at future conventions. A fourth reason the unions have given people of faith cause to abandon them is because they don't often protect teachers of faith like they do their other members. Christian educators often face what amounts to religious discrimination by their unions. For example, we had a member in Ohio who was told by her administrators that she couldn't have a Bible on her desk. She happened to also be a member of the Ohio Education Association, so she asked her union to go to bat for her. But they took the side of the administration and told her she had to put her Bible away. We helped her file a grievance, which resulted in the reversal of this decision and an upholding of her First Amendment rights. So beyond simply the cause of freedom, teachers' unions have given people of faith cause to leave them by their support for abortion rights, their nearly completely one-sided political advocacy, their banning of Christian groups from their meetings, and their religious discrimination against their own members. And there are many more examples of things like this. Of course, I know I am preaching to the choir. None of this comes as a surprise, I'm sure, to any of you. This is why it is so important that organizations like Christian Educators Association, the Association of American Educators, and various state organizations exist to provide a place for other educators to get support and protections. These are also some of the reasons why we were co-plaintiffs on the Friedrichs case, and why 8 of the 10 teacher plaintiffs were CEAI members, including Rebecca Friedrichs. Since 1953, we have been working to provide a place for teachers of faith, largely in the public schools, to find support, protection, and encouragement. We are very excited about the prospects with the coming Janus case. And after the terrible tragedy of what happened last time with the death of Justice Scalia, I believe we need to be in prayer over this process. We anticipate that a victory in the Janus case will result in significant increases in the numbers of public school educators looking for other options for liability insurance, job action protection, and other benefits. Even more importantly to our mission, we hope to expand connections with these educators to equip them to walk out their faith legally in the public schools. I have read with interest accounts of teachers' unions in anticipation of losing the Janus case, attempting to get their members to sign authorizations allowing them to continue to pull funds out of their paychecks, regardless of whether or not they are union members in the future. And some of these examples I've seen are very difficult to get out of. For example, the one I saw from Minnesota only allowed educators to withdraw from the agreement during 1 week out of the entire year, and it otherwise auto-renewed perpetually. So a teacher has a crisis that week and forgets to opt out? Too bad. They are on the hook for another entire year of dues out of their paychecks, even if they aren't union members. And if they forget again next year, oh well, here we go again. This is one reason why we also need a win in the Yon v. CTA case, which could strike down these limited opt-out provisions. Now, of course, many of us are also asking the question, how will things go assuming Janus and Yon are decided the way we hope? Well, one thing we can expect for sure is unions are going to be redoubling their efforts to recruit and retain members, and it's not going to be easy for us. For example, when Wisconsin went right to work, we decided to send a postcard to every teacher in the state, letting them know that they have options. We did not expect what happened next. We couldn't answer the phone for 3 days because of all the angry and in some cases obscene calls that came into our membership service center from the union partisans. And unfortunately, we didn't see an appreciable gain in membership as a result. I've read that the Wisconsin Education Association has lost about 50% of its members, and the best teachers are seeing 5-figure signing bonuses to come teach at certain schools. Is that what we can expect after Janus? Well, Wisconsin is a unique situation because of how far Act 10 went in that state. From the numbers I've seen, I would expect a more modest decline in union membership in the 20% range. At CEAI, we are thinking and praying about how to reach out to that 20% and hopefully more. Modern social media technology does allow us to target educators more specifically, and we are beginning to use those tools more effectively. But I have found what so many others have found, that relationships are key. We are looking for ways to leverage existing relationships to grow new ones in the coming Right to Work nation we anticipate. Another coming benefit of a positive ruling in Janus would be the simplification of our messaging. It's been very difficult to have a national message about leaving the union because the rules have been so different in every state. In a Right to Work nation, we look forward to sending a unified national message to educators looking for alternatives to their unions. If you have thoughts about how to best reach educators in a post-Janus world, I'd be interested in hearing them. Finally, I would like to add that CEAI is open to partnership with other organizations in ways that are consistent with our mission. I see our connection to CEAFU as very valuable and look forward to growing these partnerships in the future. We are particularly indebted to the National Right to Work Foundation for your amazing work and support on this issue over the years. As I explained earlier, I believe we are doing the Lord's work, setting educators free from the tyranny of forced unionism. But let's remember that even if Janus and Jan and other cases don't go the way we expect, we will continue being faithful to this calling to serve educators. And as we fight these battles, may we honor God in our conduct, our speech, our attitudes, and even our love for those on the opposing side of this important issue. And let us also be gracious in victory, should we see it in these cases, and I'm confident we will. Thank you for your partnership, and please let me know if Christian Educators Association International can serve you in any way. Thank you for listening, and blessings to you.